Hi, ADHD family. Welcome to another episode of ADHD Love Parent Talk. I am Yakini. How does movement as a whole help the symptoms for ADHD? Like exercising, as I talk about in a different video, you may have heard that almost all type of movement can really help ADHD symptoms. So today I am going to be digging into that topic with my guest, Anna. But before we get into that, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you'd be notified of future videos. Hey, Anna, what's up?
Hey, Yakini.
How are you doing?
Hi, I'm all right. It's a little bit of a dreary day. It's raining outside and it just makes me want to lay in my bed, but I'm doing great.
Cool. Dreary. Actually, ours is not too bad. We've actually had some pretty, oh, wait a minute. It snowed a little bit this morning. I'll take that back.
No.
Yeah.
Oh
I'm not ready for that.
I live in Austin, so it's like, what is snow?
Oh, that's true. That is true. That is too funny. So tell the audience a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, my name's Anna. I live in Austin, Texas. I am a psychiatric physician assistant. So I work with adults in a nonprofit agency. I work in all settings. So I work in outpatient settings with people who have HIV, AIDS, and in the mental health realm. I work in residential. I work with a correctional facility. I work for an intensive outpatient, a lot of co-occurring substance use and mental health issues. So I do a little bit of everything. And I have two little boys who are almost 2 and almost 4. So they take up a lot of my time. And what else do I do? Not very much after that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Sleep.
Maybe.
Yeah, and then I have a degree in counseling too. So I'm working towards getting my license so I can start doing some more therapy stuff.
Oh, that is awesome. So you are also diagnosed with ADHD, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And what type?
Yeah. So I am basically combined type. Okay. So a little bit of everything. I've got it. A little bit, a lot of it, and I was diagnosed a little over a year ago. So when I was 33, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I came about it in a weird way. I was really looking for my now ex-husband. I was looking for him because someone had mentioned, does he have ADHD? Because he just seemed to have a lot of this more inattentive symptoms of it. And while I was going down a rabbit hole, as you do when you have ADHD, I was like, oh my God, this sounds like me. And so I kind of figured it out by trying to diagnose somebody else, basically.
That is too funny. That is too funny. So let's jump into the topic of movement, because I've heard or I've seen some of your content about movement. So I really want to talk about, why is it important for people with ADHD to move? I mean, how does that connect?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of people with ADHD have that impulsivity or hyperactivity part, and whether that's just more brain-based, your brain's kind of like what I call a hamster wheel, and your brain just keeps moving, or you are more of a hard to relax, you always feel like you're about to get up and do something. You sit on the edge of your chair. You can't really sit and watch a TV show without getting up 5 times to do something else. Me. That kind of is your body is telling you something. So I always tell people we have a body-mind connection. They work together. Our brain is not separate from our body. These things work in tandem. And so a lot of time it's really about checking in with our body. What's our body telling us to do? And with ADHD, a lot of times our body is telling us we need to move. Something is off, or we need to transition into something else, and so it's really about trying to pay attention more to your body. And when we actually do that, that can actually help dispel or expel some of that anxiety that we have, some of that rumination that we get in our brains where we're just going over and over, it can help us feel a bit more grounded or present when we're actually paying attention and moving our bodies in a way that that we enjoy and that our body needs. So I think it is important for people with ADHD. I think it's important for everyone, but especially with ADHD, where we do have a lot of that mental or physical activity. It really just helps us to be a little bit less frustrated about how our brains work, and a little bit more in tune with it and actually work with it instead of against it.
I like that. So for, our audience is mostly parents. So I think what the first thing that I think about is my child, who's also one of them who's diagnosed with a hyperactivity impulsive type, who also needs to move quite a bit. So what type of movement would you recommend for children who just need to take that break and just get up for a moment?
Yeah. It really depends on the kid.
Mhm.
And I'll get into that a little bit, but like it depends on the kid. And one thing I want to say is that we have 7 different senses, especially if you're thinking about a kid. We have 7 different senses. Some people can say more than that, but let's just go with 7 so we don't complicate it much more. We know all of the 5 senses. And then the other 2 that some people don't know about is like proprioceptive, which is really about body awareness. That's about like our nerves in our joints and stuff kind of tell us where our body is in space. So there's the proprioceptive sense, and then there's the vestibular, which is part of our ears, and it tells us about balance and movement. And so it's really about paying attention to your kids. So for instance, my kid who's almost 4, I'm pretty sure at some point he's going to have an ADHD diagnosis just from some things I've noticed over the years, even before he was born, just moving, never stops talking, moving, whatever. Like he's always precariously bouncing off of the couch, off of the chair, standing on the table. And like you can look at that and go, stop doing that. But if you actually pay attention, you'll realize his body is telling him to do something.
Right.
Maybe we need to do it in a safer way, but his
Right.
body is saying, I need a balance. I need to like jump into a pile of laundry on the couch. I need to run into something, like I need to wrestle with my brother, So when I pay attention to that, it's like, okay, so there are things that I notice he needs a lot of. So he is one of what we call like a sensory seeker. He needs a lot of sensory input to like feel grounded, to like actually relax, stop bothering me. And so for him, I think about, he is really in his vestibular and proprioceptive stuff is like huge. And so we do on the weekends, it's riding his bike, riding his scooter. He likes to go on the swing, live close to a park, we just go across the street, gets on the swing. So we do a lot of that. And that seems to help like ground him. He also really likes bright colors. And so like the TV shows that he watches are gonna be like very vivid and they really catch his attention. He's also very touchy. He's got to touch everything. Ooh, what's that? What's that? What's that? So a lot of water play, like him and his brother will like play in the sink and mess up the whole place. Or, they love, bath time is like extra special or something. So it's a lot of like trying to get some sensory stuff in. So that might even be like, we go on a hike and it's not necessarily about like going far, but it's about him being able to touch things, to see what's going on and his visual perception, to jump, to do whatever. And so it really just depends on your kid, noticing what they need. Like my other kid, does not like swinging, doesn't like it. He loves a stroller, so he can sit in a stroller all day and you can push him around and he's chill, he's relaxed. So you kind of want to just sense what their needs are, what's helped them feels grounded. And I notice when we actually do these things, there's less big emotions during the day, when we actually do things that help their bodies feel calmer, like release some of that, energy that's rolling around in their bodies.
I think that is absolutely fascinating. And my son, I also realized that he had to constantly move, right? So even when he is sitting down playing like a game, like a video game, he still has to he still moves all over. He'll get up and walk around. I mean, he still is constantly in motion. So sometimes I will wrestle with him. Sometimes, like you said, we'll go out and take walks. Sometimes we'll just, have a moment where we'll jump up and down. Sometimes we'll do just dance. We love that, just dance. So just constantly, even in the classroom. So one thing they allow him to do is get up, take a moment, and then just pretty much, do a circle and then allow him to come back. He also, even though he doesn't use it this year, but from kindergarten to 4th grade, he would have a pillow So then that way he could just, rock in his chair and wouldn't fall out of his
Mhm.
chair. So there are
Yeah.
just, to your point, there's so many different ways to allow them to move if people let them, right? If they don't
Yeah.
see it as a disruption. And do you hear a lot about that where their parents want them to be able to move, but sometimes they get pushback because they feel like it's a disruption?
Yeah, exactly. For sure. That's, a big thing I've had to like advocate for my kid in class
Mm.
sometimes because he won't sit still. He won't take a nap. He won't. And I'm like, well, if he's really engaged, there's a lot of sensory stuff going on. He'll probably nap for you. If it's kind of like a lull that day, he didn't really get to go outside because it's raining or
Yeah.
something, he might not nap. So I might get a really really, you know, irritable kid this afternoon, who knows? And just so I just kind of have to tell him like he has to move, he has to have a lot of sensory input. That's the way he works. He doesn't sit still for anything. And they tell me like gets up and like is talking to people during lunchtime. I'm like, yeah, he just doesn't sit, but like things like a pillow or like a wiggle seat or something can help, those kinds of things. Or
Yeah.
some kids have to wear those like weighted vests, and
Yeah.
he sleep for nap time, he has a weighted blanket. For bedtime, he has a weighted blanket. um so it's kind of really just paying attention to what they need, and leaning into and allowing the movement instead of trying to like shut it off. Maybe we need to veer it into something that's less dangerous sometimes,
Mhm.
depending on the kid and what they're doing. But but it's like, let them do it, because when we're actually telling them not to do it, we're telling them there's something wrong for the way that their body needs to move.
Yeah.
And also we're just squashing that energy, and it's going to come out in another way. So you might notice a tantrum, or they might not sleep as well, or whatever it is. They're just more resistant to doing things because you didn't allow them to move the way that they needed to move their body.
Mm. I remember when we first started his IEP. In the beginning, they were allowing him. So if he did not want to go outside and play, they allowed him to stay indoors. And the
Mhm.
reason why he didn't want to go outside and play was just because he had social anxiety. So he just didn't know how to go up to other kids and play. So he would just rather avoid it, altogether. But he also had, his diagnosis, and he needed to go outside and play and get that energy out. So to your
Mhm.
point, I also had to advocate and say, no, you cannot let him stay inside. Instead, why don't you help him introduce, have the monitor take him and introduce him to another kid and have him play with them, or whatever it may be. Why don't you
Yeah.
answer the issue versus just saying, nope, okay, fine, you don't have to go outside and play.
Mhm.
Like, no, he
Yeah.
needs the movement.
Yeah, and that is hard. It's hard when you have something else on top of it. And it's like, you need this thing, but then you also have social anxiety.
Right.
And so it's like, it's a balance. But yeah, like sometimes as parents or caregivers, we have to advocate and be like, nope, it's like, I know it's going to be uncomfortable,
Right.
but I also know that he needs it or she needs it. It makes all the difference in the world when they can actually just be who they are in their bodies, especially at this age. Like, don't want him to grow up with a bunch of like aches and pains and
Right.
like feeling like they can't advocate for themselves in school or work or relationships because we didn't do it for them when they were younger.
Absolutely. So for those kids, so like my daughter is, she's really into sports. She plays basketball, soccer, and so actually my son does too. But when it comes to just being at home, she really doesn't want to move. She doesn't want to do anything unless she's with her friends. Now she's the opposite. She's an absolutely social butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
And, she'll say, can I go walk with my friend? And I say, yeah, you can go walk with them. But if she doesn't have a friend to walk with or, someone to connect with, she doesn't want to move. She just wants to sit there. So
Yeah.
how can parents really help encourage their kids to move and not really have a reason for it? Like I said, she has to connect with someone and walk with them. How can
Mm-hmm.
parents encourage their kids to get up and move?
Yeah. Well, I think always we have to start with being the example, right? And so for some of us, that can be hard. Like sometimes I don't want to do anything, but I also know that movement and like doing things helps me to feel better,
Mm-hmm.
and so we can even express that, like, oh man, I really just want to sit here with you guys. I really don't want to get up and pack your lunches. I really don't want to get up and do these things, but I also know that I feel better when I start moving during the day. It actually helps me wake up. It actually helps me feel like a little bit happier and like a little bit more excited for my day. And so expressing that, and also like being an example, even when it's hard to do, ADHD or not, is going to be probably a really big starting point. Another point is to just think about, like, what do they like to do? What do they want to explore? And trying to figure out how to help get them reminders to move their body. Maybe it's alarms, maybe it's a little bit of a schedule, nothing too strict, but still kind of have like a routine and a schedule around their days. Like, okay, like it's 4 o'clock. That means that, we spend some 10 minutes stretching or like sewing or doing your yarn project or something, so kind of like helping encourage them towards movement. I always think that adds something that they enjoy. And it could be like, movement doesn't have to be something like big and like theatrical. It could be like baking, it could be painting, it could be, whatever. It's really about engaging your body in whatever activity that you're doing. Okay. So, and if she's social, like sometimes that's the key. I do better too when I get together with a friend. Like, I'm very much like, I call myself an extroverted introvert, very social, but also like, leave me alone. I don't talk to me. So, but I know that I'm like more capable of getting stuff done when I'm with others, or like I feel better when I'm with others, so, that might be, for me, it's like Zoom meetings to get stuff done, or like go like meeting up with friends to co-work or whatever, like, or just hang out. Right. Walk around, take a small walk or something. And so it's really about leaning into what they like, what they want to explore. You sit down with them and say, hey, like, what are some kind of activities that you've been wanting to do? Maybe while you're like at home, we can start, exploring some of these things that you've been wanting to do. And that might be helpful for the kids who are just resistant. I don't really like that word, because usually like there's something behind it. It's not just them, but like rebelling. But yeah, I think that can be very helpful for kids. It's really just like making sure that they are involved with whatever, like making sure they understand that like movement is good for them. But also on the opposite side, it's like rest is important too. Especially for someone who's super active all the time, maybe she needs it. Or like another kid, like maybe they need the rest, but it's, like, let's really listen to our body. Like, what's our bodies telling us? Because sometimes, ooh, that was a big thunder there.
It
was. Sometimes like our body's saying like, I really just need a moment to rest, and that could be what your kid is doing when they're sitting, especially if they're super active physically. And sometimes they'll notice like their brain is saying like, you probably should get up and do something or shift activities. And they don't do it because it's hard to transition, or it feels too hard. And so it's really about, engaging with them. It's like, what's your body telling you? Like, what makes it hard to switch? Or do you really feel like rest is what you really need right now in this moment? Like really trying to work with them, like in what their body's telling them in the moment.
Okay, I like that. And is it something that we should encourage them to do on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it's really, we don't want to like make it so rigid. It's like, you need to always, be doing something, again, like being productive, whether that's even like hobby wise, But yeah, we definitely need to try to like incorporate movement into our daily practice, especially for those with ADHD. And I think you just, it's different day to day. So again, it's really about tuning into what your kid needs, what their body needs in that moment, and really just going with it. Maybe it's a little bit more cuddles, a little bit more screen time, a little bit more water, maybe it's a little bit more like riding bikes, or even getting in the car and driving around or something. Because, that's some of the vestibular stuff. My kids love being in the car and driving around. That helps them too. So like whatever it is that they need for the day can be very helpful, like just getting that sensory input.
Okay, perfect. So is there anything that we missed? Any final thoughts for the parents?
It's this is can be really tough. So it might sound like it's easy, but it's not easy. It's not easy to figure out what your kid needs or wants. And also it's not easy as a parent, especially if you're also a parent with ADHD or any other neurodivergent, you know, diagnoses, to try to like meet needs all the time. And we're not going to do it perfectly. We're not. And there's just some days where it's like, I'm too tired. I know I need to get them out and do stuff, but I'm tired. And so they can destroy the house. You know, and so it's like, it's not going to be perfect. We're not asking for 100%. It's really just about being just more aware of what's going on. And sometimes if we are just more aware of ourselves and what we need, it can make it easier for us to understand what our kids need. So just be really aware of that. And so it could be even like, yep, I know I need to like get up. It would be better if I get up, do something with the kids, but I just really can't today.
Yeah.
Like being aware of that, like you need the rest and you're okay with the mess if that's what happens. So really it just takes some time, you know, look into some resources. There's so many resources out there for that. Don't get overwhelmed by resources though. Like choose one or two and just don't overdo it if you can. Like it will stress you out more if you do overdo it. But like over time, you'll figure it out. It's not going to be perfect. As long as you're just trying to work with your kid, you're really trying to understand them. That's the best that we can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. So speaking of resources, is there anything that you can recommend, anything that they can check out or look up?
Yeah, so one of the ones I first got into when I was really learning more about like sensory needs and stuff was Your Kids Table. It's a website. She also has an Instagram page. I think her name is Alisha Grogan. She's an occupational therapist. And so she does all like sensory stuff and then picky eating stuff too. And she's great. And she has a lot of resources. She has books, resources. She has activity resources for all sensory needs, for the sensory seeking, for the sensory avoidant kids. Like she has a million different things. She has courses that you can like buy and go over. And it doesn't feel too overwhelming too. Like she does have a lot of like, she promotes a lot of things that you can buy, like sensory stuff, and that can be a little bit much because you're like, oh my gosh, what should I buy? Like, you know, try, if that's too much for you, like don't lean into all that stuff too much. But still, she still has a lot of good resources on there to kind of help you navigate how to help your sensory kid or your picky eating kid, or you're both in my case. I like on Instagram there's Movement Matters, and I don't know her name, but she's really into, I think she's an OT again, or PT, I don't know, physical therapist or occupational. She's really into play, really thinks about like neurodivergent issues. And again, she really focuses on like, let's not just look at behavior and try to treat that. Let's see what the behavior is really pointing to, like what's really underneath it, what's it signaling. But she has some like good videos on that and just like ADHD issues and other stuff. I like Busy Toddler on Instagram because she has a lot of activities for your kids, but they're also like affordable. A lot of times it's just like stuff you have around your house. Like get your kid in the bathtub and throw some Legos in there. Like seriously, like things that you probably never thought about, but it's like, oh wow, like yeah, that's easy. I can do that. And for people like me who like get overwhelmed by like trying to put activities together for my kid and just get frustrated and sweaty and like they play for 2 minutes and then they're done. And he like just don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. Like she's great because it's like stuff that they actually will like do, and even if they're not interested, like you didn't waste your time putting it together, you know, because I really hate that. I truly hate spending my time on stuff that my kids aren't gonna touch or like play with for 2 seconds. Like makes me so mad.
You're not the only one. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, like my older one is like, he's not really into art. Like he'll do it for like 2 seconds, getting all the stuff to paint and all. No, we don't bring that stuff out very often because it just drives me nuts. And then I have to clean it up. And he like leaves things uncapped and everywhere. It's just too much. I can't do it. So like, yeah, I like her because I feel like she has a lot of doable things that aren't gonna like piss you off. And I'm really into like somatic things. So like anything bodily focused. And I've been into this one lady who's a somatic coach on YouTube. Her name is Irene Lyon. And she's probably more like geared towards adults. She does have some stuff on kids though, like, and also how to like relate to this to kid issues. But it's really good because it's like, you know, we need to pay attention to what's happening in the body now so that we're not like later in life, like repercussions of, you know, ignoring things or whatever. And so she has some really good videos and resources. She has a website that's, I think, linked to her YouTube page. But yeah, like there's a lot of different resources really. But yeah, you know, like I said, just try one thing, you know, read on it just a little bit at a time. Like don't overwhelm yourself. Like don't freak out and feel like you have to do everything that they're saying and do all the activities and all that stuff. Like it'll overwhelm, especially I know these ADHD parents out there who have like ADHD kids and they're like, okay, let's revamp our whole lives. Let's get this figured out. And it's like, don't do that. You know, just go with the flow. It'll come together eventually. Take your time and don't overwhelm yourself with all this information. You know, it's good to have it, but also like just, you know, little bites at a time.
Exactly. You know, that's so funny because I do remember being that person, right? So as soon as I found out my kids definitely had ADHD, even though it was, you know, my son was diagnosed at 5, my daughter wasn't diagnosed till 11, but I'd already knew. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do all of these things for them. I'm going to buy all of this stuff and I'm going to, you know, have all of these activities at home. Please. I think it was like, okay, I'll say about 2-3 years later, I'm like, they'll just do whatever they do. Like, I'm just, you know, I'll just put things in a box and they'll just go out and get whatever they want, right?
Yeah, I know. Like especially during the pandemic, I was like trying to be one of those moms who like all the activities and everything. And then I was like, whatever, you just go to the bathroom, take a pot, fill it with water, do whatever you want.
Sometimes you just got to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll even out. So even if you feel like you're too into it in the moment, like it'll even out and you'll be like, forget it, like do whatever you want. Like I don't need to like be, you know, overdoing it. Sometimes we have to overdo it to kind of figure out like what's going to be the new normal, I guess. So either way, you'll be fine.
That's too funny. So Anna, if they have any more questions for you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yes, so you can get to me on my Instagram page, which is ADHD in ATX. ATX stands for Austin, Texas. And you can also email me at adhdnatx@gmail.com. I have a link tree on my Instagram, so I have resources on there. I think I have some of these resources on there already that we talked about. But yeah, you can always like direct message me on Instagram too. I'm on Twitter. I have like 3 followers right now. I'm terrible at social media. Okay, like I just can't do it. I can't do it. I can't get into it. So I don't really care if I don't have followers, but you can always follow me or tweet at me or DM me on anything or email me and I will get back to you when I can, usually pretty quickly. So yeah, just contact me through any of those things. I'll probably have a website at some point. I'm working on stuff, but it's slowly coming together.
Very cool. Well, Anna, thank you so much. You had me cracking up. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's awesome. We'll have to talk about another topic. I'll figure it out. All right, everyone, that concludes another episode of ADHD Love Parent Talk. If you want more content like this, again, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell because every time a video comes out, you will be notified. And share with us, share with the audience, with the community, what type of movement do you do with your children or even with yourself? Please put them in the comments below. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. Bye. Bye, Anna.
Bye.